Hey, this is Plaid Man Speaks. Plaid Man. So I have kind of like a fun thing that I wanted to talk about today. And as you can see, I'm trying this wide setting. We'll see if it works. I can use my hands. Force lightning. All right, that's the silliest thing I can think of. It's like, what do you do with your hands? I have force lightning that comes out of them. Anyhow, so I had this wonderful thing that I've been asking people I interact with, my coworkers, what have you. And I was kind of curious, and I brought it up in a video before where I was just like, hey, if you had three wishes, three wishes, what would they be, right? And I was just curious as to what people's answers are. And I find that a lot of people tend to have like just the one. They'll have like the go-to thing is like, I want $1 million, right? Or $100 million or whatever. And you can kind of tell a little bit about a person by how much money they want and how that tends to be the thing. I mean, it's very interesting that that is the thing that people think about. They're like, oh, hey, what I'm lacking in my life is money. Okay, fine, fair enough. So, but I had a coworker today who, interestingly enough, suggested a short film to me. I think it's called Time Traveler 3032 or something like that. And it's a little short film on Tubi. I started watching it. I have not finished it. It is very much a short film. It's kind of like a, how to describe it, like a student film. Not a student film per se, but it is kind of that quality. It's about 36 minutes long. And the core concept of it is, hey, this guy who is from 3032 travel back in time, and we're interviewing him, right? Now, I love the concept. And it was interesting because I was talking to my coworker about like conspiratorial things, and then he brought this up, and I was like, how fascinating. And in him talking about it and me watching a little bit of it, I was like, I actually kind of agree with some of this stuff. Now, I'm not necessarily saying, I'm not actually saying at all that sorry, that's my cats being silly, that the things in that little short film are true. Matter of fact, I don't know them to be true. But I will suggest the short film in general because, and Tubi, you can get it and check it out, whatever. I find it interesting. I think it's interesting when art talks about these subjects and kind of challenges people's minds. Sometimes art's main goal, my cats are just goofing around, art's main goal is to get past people's like wall that they have. Because you can talk to someone about a thing and then they can read a book, watch a movie, listen to a song, and because it's in that format, they're not resistant to it. Okay? And the cats are just losing their minds apparently. Because it's in that format, they're not resistant to it. But if you talk to them even nicely, they're like, oh, no, that didn't happen. What are you talking about? You're crazy. So, simply put, I will just say, check it out if you will. But that isn't really what today's thing is about. Today's thing is a little bit more fun because of that subject, what he brought up is this concept of like, hey, dude, if you could travel through time, where would you want to go? And what would you want to do? And it was great because he's asking me a question that is akin to the question that I asked him. I asked him, like, what were your three wishes? And it was really just money. He didn't know the other two. And I even challenged him to ask his lady. I guess he forgot or whatever. And we already did that whole thing. I would love to do it again because it's so awesome. But what was interesting is I was thinking like, well, he asked me like, what's your favorite time in history? And I was like, well, medieval times, right? And then I was thinking, yeah, but that's not really a good time to be alive in general because, you know, quality of life was horrid, even though food was actually really good if you could get it. But you had a bunch of other issues, death, you know, around, not in that, I mean, depending on what you call it, the plague. You had lots of other issues in that time. So it's really not a great time to be alive. But then I clarified and I'm like, but I kind of like the sword and the bow and arrow, right? That time in history, which is frankly, most of what we know of history is bow and arrow as far as militarily speaking. And the reason why I like it is because, simply put, if you're talking about war, the greatest element, the great advantage is if you are trained and you know what you're doing, then you can defend yourself. Versus in today's day and age, you can have somebody who doesn't know anything, and if they have a gun, they point it at you, and you happen to be in the wrong spot at the wrong time, you'll just die. Like, pretty sure the lifespan, I saw a wonderful video about this. It's like a guy in a tank, the average lifespan in like open warfare is like 5 minutes. Whereas the average lifespan of like a soldier in open war is like 30 seconds or less than 30 seconds. It was astounding. It was like, OMG. Ridiculous. Now that I'm not trying to put everything in there. I even talked to him. I was like, dude, Spec Ops, like modern Spec Ops guys, really cool. And this isn't supposed to be a whole thing about war. It was just me kind of going off on a tangent. So the real question, and this is a question for you, and this is a question when you're with your family, when you're having a family Friday night dinner, or you're going to a thing, or you're talking to your buddies at the gym or at the club or whatever, or you're asking your lady, you're like, hey babe, or hey honey, like whatever it is. I think it's an interesting thing to kind of tell and challenge someone, like an elementary, if you will, a introductory, like mind exercise. Where would you want to travel in time, and to do what? Now, I think, and I was thinking today, that a lot of people, good, innocent people would be like, I would want to go back in time and I would want to kill Hitler, right? Which sounds bad, right? If you think about it, it's like, oh, you want to go back and murder someone? It's like, no, I want to go back in time and kill Hitler. I want to stop Hitler from murdering all the people. And it's like, that's actually not a bad, I could see why you came to that conclusion. Props for that. I don't know if that's really the best thing, generally speaking, because then how would the world look without that? Now, I'm not trying to say that what Hitler did was good, because it wasn't. What he did was absolutely bad. But it is an interesting paradox, as time travel in general is. Like, if you're going to go back in time and you're going to make somebody dead, my counter to that argument, because I was thinking it, is like, well, what's to say that some other person doesn't just pick up the mantle and do basically the exact same thing? And instead of hating the name of Hitler, we hate the name of Franz. Like, that's the new German, whatever, some other guy named Karl Franz came and he just took over all of Germany and like, hut, hut, hut. And that they do this instead of this. It was like, maybe, I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. But I just felt like it was a bit too simplistic, okay? And I feel like perhaps that's what a lot of people are thinking. It's like, oh, hey, I want to go and do this, or I want to go. And I was challenging myself. I was like, what? Where do I feel like mankind was doing this, and then there was a moment where we're like, nope, and then we start going down this way. What was that moment? For me, I'm going to go a little... is when the Federal Reserve got initiated. It's when corporations legally became basically entity, like a human entity, like had rights. But I would really say it's when like central banking became officiated in the United States, which I believe happened a little bit after. I need to do some research on this, and I probably should have done research before doing this video, but I was so excited for this concept. But to me, when we did a centralized bank, and I think it happened right around the Civil War, when we did that, like, I don't know if any of you have heard of greenbacks, but greenbacks was, simply put, a form of tender, a money that was generated, to my understanding, around the Civil War age. In the North, they generated this new thing, and it was not backed like federally. It wasn't like a central bank thing. It was this separate monetary thing that Abraham Lincoln was trying to get started. And it worked for a bit, and then it got like shut down and so on and so forth. And now we have what we have now, where we have the banking system and all of this other things. which in my opinion, and frankly, you should do your own research on like, hey, Federal Reserve, central banks, stuff like this, because it's no bueno. It's no bueno. It's not good. So check it out yourself. But I feel like at that point in time, now that's not super sexy. Like when I was thinking about it today, I was like, well, that's not cool at all. Like, and then alternatively, I'm like, well, what would be a cool thing? I guess like a samurai when the Mongols invaded the first or the second time. Maybe that would be kind of cool to be a samurai against the Mongols. Maybe. I don't know. It's like so like when I don't know. I feel like I'm in Fight Club and I'm trying to have a conversation with Brad Pitt about like who would I want to beat up? Like it's such an interesting, mind-boggling question, and I don't really have a good answer. But I would say this, that if there was a moment in history where I felt like we as human beings started really going down, like things weren't going this way, they were actually going this way, I would say it's when the Federal Reserve was officially created, and that kind of started setting us on a downward trend. There's a lot of other things that one can look at and be like, well, but David, what about this? And what about this? And like, like tons of stuff. And by all means, if you have a moment in time, and this is a question for you, if you could go back in time, right? And let's just say you could go back as whomever you want, right? Like if you want to be tall, skinny, whatever, any color. Okay. So I'm not trying to like, oh, hey, well, blah, blah, blah. You go back in this time, that's not going to do so well for you. But like, if you could go back and like interact with and be knowledgeable, and let's be a little serious. This isn't about winning the lottery, but if you could go back in time, where would you want to go and what would you want to do? And that's my question for the day. So I love you. Double deuces. Plaid Man out. Thank you for watching Plaid Man Speaks. Bye.